Okay, and then on the sanctions
Yes,
that were
we announced
imposed,
more sanctions yesterday.
correct. I know that it is probably too early to tell if these are going to be the tipping point, if this is what's finally going to get the Russians to change their calculus. But I'm wondering, given the fact that this morning the Russian the Russian government's response has been very dismissive, to say the least. If you have any realistic expectation that this is going to that this latest round is actually going to do what you say you want it
Well,
to do.
I mean, the point here is to continue upping the pressure and increasingly squeezing them economically so that President Putin will make the right decision here. But if he doesn't, we will continue putting the pressure on him. I mean, look, the fact that even before yesterday, nearly $100 billion in capital was expected to flee Russia. At some point, I think the Russian citizens are going to be pretty unhappy that because of his actions in the region and other countries, their economy is tanking. So that's what it's designed to do, and we'll keep upping the pressure. These are three key sectors yesterday. The firms in these sectors really want access to the U.S., really want access to the EU, and are going to feel the pressure.
So so that means the intent of these sanctions is to, using your words, tank the Russian economy.
The purpose of these sanctions is to put enough pressure on the Russian government that eventually President Putin will change his calculation.
Right.
But if he doesn't, he's going to face a situation where the people of his country who've worked so hard to be part of the international community won't be. And he can face those consequences.
Because your sanctions have affected them.
Have very negatively affected the Russian economy,
So-
which will affect
so
them.
So in fact, you're saying that the goal here is to make it painful on the Russian people.
Not at all.
Oh,
That is
okay.
not what I said, Matt.
All right,
The
well, it
goal,
seems like
I
that's
will
what you're
repeat
saying.
it for you yet again,
Yeah.
is to put enough pressure on the Russian government that they change their calculation and do different things in the future. Part of how that happens is the people of Russia say, look, I don't want to not have access to the international financial system because President Putin is off trying to invade other countries. That's part of what can affect a leader's calculation, which I know you're very well aware with.
Yeah, excuse me. Yes, I am. But is the goal right now then to drive the Russian economy into recession? Because
No.
a lot of people say
The
that that's
goal
what.
is to pressure the Russian government to change their behavior.
Have you come to the conclusion that getting to that point will require driving the Russian economy into recession?
No, that's too simplistic. What we've always said is the longer sanctions are in place, the more impact they have, and we want that to change their
The
calculation.
president yesterday was asked if this is a new Cold War. He said, no, this is a very specific set of circumstances. But whether or not it is or isn't a Cold War or a new Cold War, it certainly looks like an economic war. Whether war is the right term or not, you are trying to negatively affect the Russian economy, to put pressure on the government. How is that not an economic war? How is that not a new East-West, since the Europeans are on board with you too? How is that not a new
Well, we put sanctions
East-West
on a number of countries.
conflict?
This is a tool we use all across the globe.
I understand that, but
It's
this
not
is
specific.
intentionally.
This isn't an East-West issue.
Well, okay, well, you put sanctions on the Venezuelans. You just announced that this
Those
morning.
aren't sanctions, technically.
Well, they're travel bans. They're punishments.
But
Those do not
technically, they're not
affect.
sanctions.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Whatever, but they are steps. They are measures that you take to show your displeasure. That's what you're doing with these sanctions as well. Travel bans and visa bans on people do not impact entire economies. They impact specific targeted individuals. The sanctions that you guys and the Europeans have put in place are intended to affect a broad swath of
Right.
Russia's economy.
But it's
right?
not about an East-West. We've also done that in Iran. We've done it in North Korea. We've done it elsewhere. It has nothing to do with East-West or some weird Cold War
So you're at war
throwback
with
that President Putin wants to somehow return to.
Okay, so you're not just at war economic war with Russia. You're also in economic war with Iran, with North Korea,
No,
with all
we
these
believe
countries.
that sanctions are an incredibly effective and important tool that can impel countries to change their behavior.
But you would also admit that thus far your sanctions have not changed the Russians' behavior, correct?
Well, and I've also said last week that we don't know what they would have done if we hadn't. So
Yeah, but I mean, just to kind of broaden it out, I mean, you saw that I'm sorry if you missed it and I was just checked out for a minute, but did you see the tweet
I
of
think
the
that happened to me too.
member of parliament that said that President Obama is sparking a new is going to be the president that goes down in history as starting a new Cold War.
We're not the country that invaded another
Right,
country.
but I mean,
our actions are in response to
I
actions.
understand, but if you're taking it on the totality, okay, you have these sanctions, you have these other measures that you've kicked Russia out of the G8 for now.
Mm-hmm.
You've stopped most of the political cooperation in NATO. You put let me finish. You put this violation you slapped them with a violation for their arms treaty. I mean, you could see from the Russian point of view that you are interested in kind of fueling a renewal of the Cold War, where it's
Not
like
at all.
it's like the world against Russia.
No, not at all. Look, first, it's not just about us. It's about the EU. It's about the rest of the world standing up and saying,
not just you, but that
No,
there is a
but-
new Cold War in effect.
No, because this is a very limited set of circumstances, not a broad ideological, decades-long conflict that we saw during the Cold War. This is in response to specific Russian government actions by invading another country. It is
But
about
you don't think it's a broad? It may be not a decades-long ideological war, but it does seem as to be an ideological war over, how Russia views its role
whether
in the
you
world
can
and how
invade
the
other
rest.
countries?
Well, no, not just about Russia's role in that region versus how you view it.
Well, look, what we have said is everything we've done. If Russia hadn't invaded Ukraine, none of this would be happening. So I think that's the only proof point you need here. President Obama very clearly said yesterday, this actually isn't what we wanted. This is not the kind of relationship we wanted, but we're also not going to stand by and let Russia do this and get away with it.
Just a quick follow-up, Madam. Thank you.
Uh-huh.